and then they announce that we won, right? Excited, but then nervous, right? Because it's like, okay,
now you got to give the speech.
yeah, now it's game time,
yeah,
right?
no, for
Like
sure.
now you got to get up on stage.
Yeah,
You're looking around, you're smiling, you're holding the trophy,
yeah,
and then you got to go up there and you got to grab the mic, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's game time.
Land ahoy, mateys!
The archipelago awaits.
There was another thing actually that came to my mind this morning.
Yeah.
And
Fire away.
if we could throw a curveball in it,
Sure.
if you're up for it.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we won the Business Innovation Award.
Yes,
So Stratus won the
incredible.
Business
Yeah, yes,
Innovation Award.
congratulations.
Yeah,
That was
thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was cool. But so these last 2 weeks or 3 weeks have just been like go, 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 go.
Yeah.
So I was preparing. I basically had a couple client meetings, and then we didn't know if we were going to win the award
Yeah.
or not.
They don't tell you ahead of time at all.
No, they
yeah.
don't. So we're sitting there.
Yeah.
I know I have 2 minutes to make a speech.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest crowd I spoke in front of was probably around 100 people. And I was guessing there's 300 people here,
Yeah.
right?
And I listened to your speech. You did a good job.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I prepared before, right?
Yeah.
So then I sat, it was Wednesday, Thursday, kind of wrote out the speech, prepped, kind of thought about what I wanted to say,
Yep.
practiced. But I was like, I definitely felt the nerves like leading up to it. And
Yeah.
especially so we're sitting there. There was 3 nominations, and then they announced that we won, right?
Mm-hmm.
So excited, but then nervous, right?
now you
Because
gotta-
it's like, okay,
Now you got to give the speech.
yeah, now it's game time.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Right?
for
Like
sure.
now you got to get up on stage.
Yeah.
You're looking around, you're smiling, you're holding the trophy,
Yeah.
and then you got to go up there and you got to grab the mic, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's game time.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I want to talk about more is public speaking, and
Mm-hmm.
we can even talk about storytelling too, is that probably 80% of the speeches that night started with, I'm not a good public speaker,
Yeah.
or I don't like public speaking. Honestly, my favorite one was there was a roofing company that sat at our table, and they were up for their customer service award,
No.
and they won. And so we were talking to them. We were like, okay, who's going to make the speech? Because it was him and his wife. And his wife was like, no. He likes talking to people more than I like talking to people, so he's making the speech. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, I don't like public speaking. He's like, we're not making a speech. So they were about the 4th award, and every business was making a speech. So they come up, their group comes up, they win it. So they're going up to the stage, and me and Leah are looking at each other, and we're like, well, we don't know who's going to speak here. Like, what's going to happen, right? So then she goes up, and she actually does a pretty good job where she says her thank yous, she thanks the team, thanks everyone for being here. And then he goes up and he goes, I'm not good at public speaking, but I'm good at roofing. And then he just walks away.
That's succinct, anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Know your strength.
Exactly.
Know your strength. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I thought that was one
Yeah.
of the best ways to handle it,
Yeah.
because you're like, okay, well, if I need roofing, call that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want public speaking, don't call them. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, why do you think there's such a mental block on public speaking?
Yeah, I think probably the first one. I think everybody thinks they're on display. I think that's it. I mean, we're competent in ourselves when we're to that guy saying, you know what, I'm good with talking to customers, but then I think people think you're on display, that you're there, and I guess you are on display. I guess if you're in front of 200, 300, 400, 500 people and saying it, everybody's sort of focused on you, and then you start having self-doubts whether you're good at what you do, you're not good at what you do, the imposter syndrome, all this stuff. So I think it's a judgment thing where people are judging you or looking at you, or that's the perception you have. But then it's really funny because you said like 80% of the people aren't good at public speaking. Well, then it would stand to reason that if you just got up there, then the audience is made out of those 80% that aren't. So they should give you a lot of latitude in terms of what you say. So because they know how nervous it is for them. If they're all perfect at it, then you'd be like, I don't know, that would be a tougher audience if they were all professional public speakers and you had to go up there, right? So
That's the other thing. I think people are rooting for you. Like especially in situations like that, where you go up there and you see someone who's nervous.
Right.
Like, I know I'm sitting there hoping that they do a good job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sitting there hoping that they like rough through it. Like, when someone sees somebody struggling, like, I think that they hope that they do a good job, and they're rooting for you.
I was the one that I remember. It was the worst one I'd ever heard in my life, and I was there, and I died 1,000 deaths for the person. So it was, what had actually happened was, it was a retirement party for this one gentleman. And he was kind of a dick and in his professional life to everybody. And so they went in order, like, okay, you're the senior most person. Do you want to talk about this guy? And nobody liked him, nobody respected him, nobody wanted to talk about him. So they went down like, okay, you're the second most, senior guy. And they finally got to the 10th or 15th one. And the guy didn't understand that they had went through everybody and nobody wanted to talk. So then he was quite honored. Well, I'll talk about him. But he didn't know a single thing about him. Mm-hmm. Not a single thing. Totally different people. Like in terms of spectrum, one was the person speaking was a deeply religious guy, and this guy was a whiskey drinking, cigar smoke. So they're just different worlds. So I'm like, so they got up at this thing, and this guy's family was all there, like in terms of the guy that they were going to talk about. So he gets up on stage, and I'm like, what is he going to say? Because he does not know the subject matter. That's the key, I think, to some of the public speaking. You got to at least know what you're talking about. So I'm thinking, well, how is this going to go? And what the guy did is he started to tell a story that had nothing to do with a story about himself. So imagine me saying, okay, telling a story. Then I go, think about Wes when you think about that story. And that's what he did. That was his bridge line and it had nothing to do with you. And it's just a story, and then go think about Wes. And there's no connectivity. Mm-hmm. And he did that 3 or 4 times. And I actually, no bullshit, I ducked under the table. I was so embarrassed for him. Like, somebody save this guy, because this is an absolute, the train wreck of all train wrecks. And everybody around me was looking like the same thing. I felt, to your point, we're rooting for the person, but this person had no chance because he was in a situation that he never should have took, but he misunderstood that they didn't pick him out of the lineup to be the best. He was by default the only person that would say yes and knew nothing about the subject matter. So
yeah, that was willing to get up there and speak. Because I 100% agree with you. Preparation is like one of the biggest things to being successful, because like I think back, I took a new ventures class, and at the end of the class, what it was is like we're kind of making a presentation to a board. Yeah. And we spent the whole year kind of working through our idea, primary market research. So when it got to it, I remember sitting there with my buddy, and we were sitting outside of the room and we were practicing our presentation. I looked over, and we didn't practice that much, right? But I looked over at him, and I was joking around. I wasn't taking it super seriously. And I was like, so if I forget my lines, do you have me? And then he looked at me with like kind of a weird face, and he was like, no, I have no idea what you're going to say. So then I got on stage, and then I forget my lines. So then I'm standing there on stage. I remember looking over at him, and he's like, I don't know what you're going to say. And then, so after that, I was like, okay, I do not joke around about or pretend of
put it out in the universe.
Exactly. Yeah. I do not put it out in the universe. Yeah. And it's a focus on preparation. Yeah. Because one of my best speeches I ever had was for my best friend's wedding. I was the best man, and I made the speech, and it was about a 8 to 10 minute speech where I sat down, and it was I found this part really fun because it was almost like how comedics tell good stories, where you first thing I wanted to do was get the crowd involved. Yep. And then I wanted to paint a picture that then as I tell the story, I come back to it at the end of the story so I can wrap it all together. Yeah. So then I was really prepared for it. I had it all structured, had my story structured out, and then I just sat there and I practiced in the mirror over and over and over and over again. I probably practiced for 4 hours. Yep. So I had the reps underneath me. I remember sitting there. So there was a podium, and then there was a stage. And then everyone was standing at the podium giving the speeches. So then in my mind, I was the last speaker. I'm like, I'm going to grab the mic, I'm going to get on the stage, and then I'm going to get the audience involved. Yeah. Right? But I'm nervous. My heart, dum. I didn't really, everyone was having drinks kind of before and throughout the day. I was like, no, I'm okay.
Don't get plastered in there.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm okay. I'm going to wait till after my speech. Yep. And then I got up there, grabbed the mic, went on stage, looked at the crowd, and just got started. But it was at that point, it was almost more like muscle memory than it was me trying to really deliver a speech.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. I really think that's the key is to, well, if there's key is to know the subject matter, and the way you know it is either it's stories about you or something you've created, then you obviously know it, and then you practice and practice and practice. And that's what people, they practice it once and they go, what's the big deal? I'll just go up there. But the problem is when they practice it once by themselves, that's not the same as standing in front of a room of 20 people, 50 people, 500 people. There's just a whole different thing. When I went to college, like one of the most feared classes was a speech class. That's all it was speeches. So if you had a fear of it, there's no escaping it. And I talked to actually some people, they said, well, I was going to take that course out there, but it's mandatory. You have to do that speech. And they were petrified. So they never did actually. So because of that one class, so I'm like, well, how am I going to interact?
They didn't graduate?
Well, but they actually didn't go to college because of that course.
Okay.
So you couldn't avoid it. Like it was there and it was going to be no matter what,
Yeah.
you had to do it. So and the way they structured it was quite interesting because instead of going, okay, there's 20 students and they go, okay, Johnny, you're number 1 and Susie, you're number 2. They just, okay, everybody's going to do a speech and they leave it open and they sit there and you can hear crickets and it's just a matter, everybody has to take their turn. And then you'd have to do like 20 different types of speeches throughout that was the whole thing. But for myself, that was a scary thing because my background was, I remember in grade 7 that we had to do speeches as part of an English class. And I got up there and I cried. I was scared. So then it's like, oh boy. And so I really hated public speaking. So I'm like, how the heck am I going to interact with this one? But then I think to your point, I think it was those key things we were saying, why don't you talk about stuff you know? And why don't you make sure you're prepared? Because what I noticed is that a lot of them didn't. Like for instance, one time they had this thing that you had to, read a story or a poem. So on the way down to the class, there was 4 of us walking, and they said, hey, the one person said, hey, hang on a sec, I just got to stop at the library here. And they walk in and they grabbed a poetry book. And then they go, and I said, like, what are you doing? Like, we're like a minute from the class. And they said, well, I'm just going to read a poem. So imagine that you grab a book, a poetry book, open it up, and have never read the poem. You don't know what it's about. You don't know the cadence. You don't know and so this was going to be an accident or a train wreck waiting to happen. So then the third sort of strategy for me that I did in my brain was, okay, know the subject matter, practice. But then I would say it would stand to reason that if you have a choice of when you go in order, I'd probably want to follow the train wreck because whether mine's really good or not, it probably appears to be better after listening to something like that. And so that's what actually I'd do is, so the person would say, okay, I'm going up to do this, and they're going to read this poetry. They don't even know the words. They don't know the cadence. They don't know the rhythm. And as soon as they were done, I was as fast as I could get on stage. Yeah, I sort of almost body checked them to get up there because. And then for that one, as an example, I did Gunga Din by Kipling from memory. So I had practiced it so much. Everybody had, she had the book that she was reading. Everybody else maybe had cue cards, to your point about trying to separate yourself. I walked up there with nothing. And they're staring at me like, where's your note? And then, you may talk of gin and beer when you're quartered safe out here. So all of a sudden they're like, what the hell is this? But it was so different. But it was because I was over-prepared. So a 3.5 minute poem, all from memory. So. And
did anyone want to get up and follow you afterwards?
Well, then it's the other side of that is then, right? You pick and choose. No, so they were like, because they had the cue cards or whatever. So, but that was my key. Was to your point is, if you practice and practice prepared, right?
Yeah, and I think we downplay how important that is because I was in a new media class in university, and we had to do some Photoshop and to kind of explain our picture and explain our process. So I was like, okay, no problem. It was supposed to be like a 5 to 10 minute presentation. So I was like, I have these 3 main bullet points in my head that I want to talk about. And then I was like, I'll just fill it in from there. Okay? That was my plan going into it. So I was the guy that on the way to class, I'll grab the poem book and I'll go deliver the speech.
Yeah.
So then I get up there and then my heart starts going. I start looking around. I say my 3 main bullet points back to back to back, and then I go and sit down. And then I think back, and I'm like, shit. What happened to the second part of the plan?
It was succinct anyways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, what happened in the second part where I was supposed to connect all of this together and make it up in the middle?
Yeah, it's that preparedness. So also with that class, I remember that, the funny thing about that class is I remember it very, very, like vividly, all the parts of it, because there was this other one was, again, this group, we'd walked it there, and then this guy gets up at the podium, and this time we have to describe something. That was kind of the subject matter of, that's what your speech is going to be. And so anyways, this one guy who probably wasn't the strongest student, and he gets up there and all of a sudden he's got his eyes down, which, you want to make eye contact, but that's okay because he's at least up there like we're all going to do. And he starts describing something, and he's using incredible descriptive words. Like, this is like I'm almost like taken aback, like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff. And then he's like, but he's not like, and you can see he's reading it, but okay. So he's reading what I would think is his cue card or whatever, and he's reading it. But then all of a sudden he stops and he unfolds it. And it's a brochure from the automobile dealership that he'd stopped and got. And it was just the description of the new car. And he was reading it line for line. But now he unfolds it like you can imagine the old maps. This thing is like 3 foot by 6 foot, and it's draped over the podium. And the instructor was quite strict. And so then he starts, and now he puts his finger, and all he's doing is reading their brochure. That's it. And all of a sudden, she's quite irritated, and his name was Tom. And she's going, Tom, and he keeps going, fuel injected, and he's got his finger moving across. She's going, Tom, and finally she lost it. I couldn't believe it. She goes, Tom, and I have the whole room stopped, and she goes, I will see you out in the hallway. So he tries to pull that thing back up, which you can't at the best of times, but under pressure. So it was quite. So everybody interacts with that fear, and like.
Yeah, exactly. And then too, even that situation, it's like how deep inside of your head, and in this case, it's probably fear and anxiety that you have to be to block everything out. Like, you can't even hear your own name to be able to read it.
Yeah.
Because I think something that I do, or did, probably still do, is that like I romanticize like very well performed speeches. I remember we were watching this one show on Netflix, and I think it was The Haunting of Hill House, or something like that. And it was all like 10-minute dialogues where they were just like you said, the flow of the speech and delivering the points and being able to use the body language. And I just I sat there and I thought, holy crap, like these are some of the most amazing like dialogues I've ever heard. So then I sat there and I thought about it, and I like romanticized it. I was like, and then I sat down and I was journaling. And I was like, well, how can you talk like that? Because that's incredible.
Yeah.
But then after I broke it down, and I was like, you have a whole director team, like a copywriting team that's like putting together the show, that literally writes out what this person is going to say. So you probably have 3 people there just crafting what they're going to say.
Yep.
And then you have to hire a professional actor that then knows that that's their big dialogue.
Yep.
And they memorize and they put themselves into the character, and then they're in it, and then they're that's what they basically train to do their whole life, right? So it's not just like you see it and you're like, holy shit, like that was amazing.
Yeah.
But actually it was 5 people who dedicated their lives to be able to tell this story. So then you over romanticize and you underestimate what it takes to actually be able to deliver that. Or if you think, well, say I had a team of 3 people for me that wrote my speech, and all my job was just to deliver the speech.
Yeah.
I bet you could come up with something really amazing.
Yeah, and I think the other final thing inside of that is, so that whole thing is a production, completely staged. But the other thing you maybe don't see is, do they do it all in one? We see it all in one, but as you know, you can clip together anything, and all of a sudden that could be, those 5 paragraphs were 5 individually done, and they pieced them together, and boy, it looks seamless, and they're incredible, right? But I think you do touch on one thing, is that powerful speeches we remember, we connect to, and it moves you. It's like, I was very fortunate to be down in Washington, D.C. there, and I was right where Martin Luther King did his I Have a Dream speech, and you can stand there. It shows he stood here and you look out over, the Washington Monument and everything down there. It's incredible, right? But these people, like whether it's JFK, it's Martin Luther King, it's all these people of history that Barack Obama was incredible in terms of they can deliver the stuff, and it just encompasses you, and you see the emotion and you move along. But these people are, first of all, exceptional at what they do, just as an example. But they also, are well seasoned, practiced. They're not going up for the first time in speech class trying to do it. So you can see that over that time, they would really work themselves to become really good at that. But
yeah, because that's what I was thinking. It's so hard to simulate actually getting up on the podium and grabbing the mic and delivering the speech. So I was like, because I can stand there in front of my mirror and I can talk and I can write these things out, but how do you actually simulate the nerves, the eyeballs, like everything that's on you in that moment? And I think it's just a matter of trying to do it more and put yourself in those situations.
Exactly, yeah. And one of the ones I did for when Gord, or the partner that I sort of created a lot of this stuff with, when he passed away, then they had, it had to be 500, 600, 700 people in there, and they asked me to get up there and say some words. So for myself, I thought, well, first of all, the time, it's very highly emotional and everything. But it was very interesting because the 2 or 3 days before that, I had the luxury of being able to talk to people as part of it, and that helped. But the other thing that helped is, it was in sort of like a convention center, because there was so many people that. So then what I did was, let's say it was going to be at 2 in the afternoon. I went there at 10 in the morning because they would have had to have it set up. So I went there and I actually sat in the audience because I didn't know where I was going to sit, but I estimated, okay, maybe I'd probably be somewhere here. And I sat there, and then I actually physically walked from those chairs up the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, over to the podium. And I did that several times, and then I practiced a couple times while there, and the people that were setting up and getting it all ready were, occasionally looking at me like, what on earth are you doing? But really what I was trying to do was make it so it was at least somewhat familiar, versus like, oh, how do I get out of this row? Where's the stairs? All the things that could throw you off, because it's a highly emotional one, right? And about 2 or 3 minutes before I was there, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. And I don't know what happened, but I don't know if he came and, propped me up and supported me to say, I can help you walk with you on the stage, sort of, spiritually. So, but it just, all of a sudden a calmness came and went up there. And now whether I delivered a good one, I don't know. But I delivered it anyway. So, but it's just that familiar practice, know the subject matter. I think those are key, those are key things. But to your point, how do you replicate that? I think just by doing it.
I think knowing yourself, like you were saying, walking that, getting familiar with it, that's building that repetition into your mind. So when it comes to actually performing it, it's more familiar.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did with this most recent speech. It was only 2 minutes, but I know at the start my heart rate's going to be through the roof.
Yep.
I probably have a good minute before I'm going to get a little bit short of breath, just because I know that that's typically what happens to me. So in the speech, I built in a little section where I asked people about AI.
Yep.
I said, here's a question for you guys. I said, by a show of hands, how many people have interacted with AI?
Yep.
So then I would put my hand up, and then I could look around the room. And then I had a couple more questions where I knew this was the area for me to calm my nerves in the speech, and then to also give myself time to breathe.
Yep.
Because I could stand there if I had to take a couple extra 5-10 seconds and look around and have my hand up.
Yep.
Perfectly fine.
Yep.
So I had that built in. And actually, when I got to that point in my speech, that's when I was like,
yeah, you could relax and enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other part that actually threw me off, because in the middle of my speech, I just got a little distracted. I remember doing this in the speech and looking back on it. I'm like, makes no sense. But basically, in front of me, there was a big projector. So you could see pretty much what was on the slides, and sometimes it would change and it would show you.
Yep.
So then I was talking the speech, and so in front of me there was nothing, and then to the left and to the right there was all the tables.
Yeah.
So most of the time I'm talking and I'm looking left and right.
Yeah.
So the one time as I was looking left, looking right, I go back and I see myself on stage. So there's the projector showing me,
Yeah.
and I think in my head like, well, I gotta trim that mustache. And that's the part where then I'm like, I kind of fumbled a little bit and lost my focus and came back. And I was like,
Yeah, can imagine. Well, especially when they show all that kind of stuff. So that's not, again, a normal sort of
exactly.
part,
And I've
but-
never seen that before too, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the first time I was ever getting exposed to it. So now I know up next time, like, okay, be used to that.
Yeah, be used to that. Not like, you're like staring at going, hey, I'm back there. Right?
Hey, who's that guy?
Who's that guy? Yeah, so it's pretty funny. But in the one you said that the one guy, the one you enjoyed the most was when he said, that one guy very simply, I don't do speeches, I'm a roofer kind of idea. But what inside of that real simple thing, what really people connect to, I believe, the most is that when you show who you are, they tend to connect to that. And it doesn't matter how you show that, but you show that. So sometimes you get people that, I've seen presentations, for instance, where they read word for word on the slide that you read. And you're like, well, I could have just read it. I didn't need you to read it. And it's like, there's no part of, they're not willing to open up a part of them. And I think the more you open up a part of you, the more likely they connect to it, if that makes sense. And the second thing, again, is that idea that you know you, right? I mean, so
yeah, the authenticity part of it, that's huge.
It is huge. It is huge. And in that speech class, for instance, so what they did was, so all the speeches after you've done all of them, then they elected me to be the main speaker of 5 speech classes. And so what that meant is I got an automatic A on my final. And there was no, since we did all these different types of speeches and all that, they had no input into what the speech was about, how they structured anything. You could go up, you had 3 minutes or 4 minutes on stage, and that's it. And you've figured out. So they did not know what was coming. So then I'm like, and so then I thought, you know what should I talk about? And I thought, you know what, I really enjoy fishing. To this day, I still enjoy fishing. Why don't I just talk about fishing and how life and fishing sort of parallel and different things? And that's what I did. And so I went up there and just talked about fishing. Yeah, had some jokes, talked about fishing. And it's a subject matter I knew because all I was talking about the stories and the different things. So I'm like, and that was it. So no matter, and the other thing is it was foolproof because I had an automatic A even if I did nothing. But if I stood there and said, I don't like giving speeches, I could have walked off the stage and that would have been an A because they had already elected me into that. But I was still think practice, know your stuff, and then just share a part of you because. To your point, everybody's scared to be up there. It's not easy, right? It's right, but yeah, I like the interaction with the audience too. That usually eases everybody up, and right.
Yeah, yeah, that's the part that I am finding easier, but it was difficult in the past. Like to share the part of you, like that authenticity part, is that like it's easy, like. It's easier, I should say, when you're talking about things that you know, right? Like when you're saying, like, I'm bringing out fishing, I'm talking about fishing.
Yeah.
Like when I was talking about technology and AI, well, that's stuff that I just talk about all the time in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But when, like, you're putting yourself in positions where you're trying to be a subject matter expert in something that, you don't truly believe in yourself, then you're going to overact or you're going to project in your mind, like, what you have to portray. And that's not authentic. And that's when you're gonna have like a really hard time, and that's when the nerves are gonna come out. So if you can show, I remember actually when I was working with Ellis Dawn doing some project management, I was getting trained on how to write change orders. So when the project changes, you would have to write a change order, and then it would have to get improved by the engineering team. And I remember sitting there with the guy, and he said, "But bring more of your voice out." He was like, "What you're writing is like very." Like standard, like you're doing a good job, but bring more of your voice out. And for me at that time, that was actually really difficult. Like I didn't know what that meant. But now, like when I'm writing emails to clients, like I'm trying to write emails just the way I would talk. right? And like I make jokes that like I think would be funny because that's my personality, right? So I'm like just doing little things like that, even writing an email, in conversations, saying things that you think are funny. Like that's where you like slowly start to like carve out your personality and what's authentic to you. And then once you start finding that, it just makes it so much easier, because if you're on stage having fun, then the people around you are going to be having fun just listening to you.
100%, yeah. And that subject matter expert's a very interesting one, because I think there was this perception, in my mind anyways, that subject matter experts need to know every single thing about everything. But that really isn't the way it really is. A subject matter expert is something that can know the area and know how to bridge it to the people that are listening to the area. So to the point is that if it was just about a fact or a set of it, then you could just say, go onto Google, go onto your public library or whatever, there you go, you got the facts, there it is. But it's that information and that, that exchange of information and how it applies in context and that. So I think sometimes we have to have more experience, we have to know, or they're gonna, the people are gonna know that I don't know to the degree. And we always have this fear that, what if somebody asks me about something and I don't know the answer? I think that's also a fear of people in public speaking, and the Q&A especially, is that somebody's gonna, right? And it's as if there's 10,000 experts in the audience listening to you, when in fact, to your point, even starting with, if most 80% of the people don't like speeches, then the fact that you get up there, you're already a subject expert, because you can do a speech and they can't. And whether you do it good or it doesn't matter, it matters that you're up there doing it. So to me, it's that we feel like we're going to be up there and we're going to be cornered, or something's going to happen. And I don't know if that's ever happened, like in one sense. Because to me, you can just say, yeah, that's a good question, I don't know about it. Well, we can look into it. Let
me get back to you and look into it, yeah.
But if you think that you have to be that person, that then you're under the gun, and then, right? It's and then what happens is you can see it start playing in your mind. If you're going, well, I hope they don't ask about this, I hope they don't ask about this, and you spend all your time, then it's almost like you're up there and they're going, why is Wes so scared? He looks scared. And
then they're not going to trust what you say. Even though if you know your stuff inside and out, they're not going to trust you.
Yeah, no, for 100%. So to me, I think I just find that if you just talk about the subject matter, share a piece of who you are. And that to me connects everybody to it.
Do you have any speeches or presentations or anything that comes to your mind that you're proud of? Like it sounded like you talked in front of for Gord and there was about 700, 800 people, but I guess people doesn't matter. Like, is there a presentation or a situation that you're proud of when you look back on it?
I think when you get them to participate and the participation shows the very point you're making, then I think that's a pretty good connection point, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think first of all, anytime you complete the speech, it's good, whether you do a good job or a bad job, if that makes sense, right?
The connectivity thing, though, actually, that's a good point. I've never thought of it, because I think about my bachelor party speech, and you can see the audience follow along, like laughing at the jokes, raising their hands, even at the end, because me and my buddy are both from Hannah. And at the end, I started to sing some Nickelback. So I was like, this is how you wrote. And then the whole crowd started singing along with me. And I didn't even expect that. And like that part was actually just really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it means that A, they're listening, and 2, they're connecting to it. So then you can see how that sort of brings it together, right?
The one thing that I think, again, that I romanticize is being able to almost like wing a speech. Right? Like go up there and just be able to like use your intuition to be able to like wing a speech and be able to like roll more with the dice, where I find like if I can come in very prepared, I can find success. But at this point, if I, just like I said in that new media class, here's my 3 points, I'll weave it in and out around that. Typically it doesn't go as well as I hope it does. Do you find, and it's probably more like knowing what you're talking about and bringing that part of you, but have you found like the more that you've talked and the more that you presented, it's like easier to be able to say go more off of your intuition than it is necessarily always preparation? For
me, probably not. That's probably, so part of the speech class was in sort of like a non-prepared one. They'd go, okay, right now, they'd say, here's the subject matter, and everybody had to get up. It didn't matter, so nobody had prep. And I stumbled there. But again, it was probably because of, at that moment, did I know what you know, 'cause anytime you're saying, what do you think about X? Well, you know what you do, but it was more to do with the framework. So to your point about, okay, well, here's my framework. I'm going to talk about this globally, and these are the 3 points, and I'm just going to fill it in. Well, at least there, then you would say, okay, unless you skip a couple of points, but there you could at least, whether you say a lot about it, then you'd say, that's my framework. This, step 1, step 2, step 3, that's what I'm going to do, and how good I fill it in. But at that moment, I didn't have even that framework, so I got up there, and it didn't, I would say it was average at best. Not that I'm like, I don't say that I'm a great public speaker. I do what I have to do. But that was kind of more bad. But it's to do with the framework. So we did do a sort of a public speaking sort of speeches and presentation sort of workshop here a couple of years ago here, and inside of that it was very interesting because the framework that you described is that. So if they say, well, look, every time if you do your presentations like this framework's point 1, point 2, point 3, then really at any point if you're up there, you're like, that's why you don't have to fill in all the words because you know roughly what it is, if that makes sense. So as long as you understood that and that pattern, then you should be able to, if you quickly put everything into that pattern, then we should all be able to get up and at least be decently coherent on stage, right? But at that one moment, I didn't even have that framework. So I did probably the worst speech I probably remember doing was actually to our buddy's 50th birthday party. He asked me, and it was very strange. He asked me if I would roast him, and I'm like, and he's not talking like, oh, say he was like the comedy club or comedy thing where you watch on TV where I'm talking roast them,
Make it hurt.
yeah, make it hurt. So I agreed to it. So I'll tell you why it didn't work. I'll tell you what worked. So when I started to do it, what he described for me to do, like in terms of roasting him, then okay, you know, and again, intertwined some real stories and some fake stories or whatever. But then what actually happened was, for whatever reason, and this is the only, and I don't have regrets in my life, but I have not a regret of what I said. I wouldn't change it, but it's the, what I ended up doing was I got lost in the speech in the sense that the speech originally started out about roasting him, and then it was about me being the roaster, and then that's what I delivered. I delivered this combination of roasting him and me being the roaster. Well, me being the roaster has nothing to do with him. So, like, anytime you make something, like when somebody asks you to deliver something for them, and you make it about you instead of them, that was now, having said that, I delivered it, and all these, you know, some lawyers come up to me and said that's the funniest thing they've ever heard, and that's fine, and that was fun. But the point is that if I had half to 3/4 was about the right reason, and the last quarter was about the wrong reason. It was about me, and that was a failure. So when you get up there to deliver something and you're delivering to the point about, you know what, I'm here to deliver the speech, but let's say as an example, you said the other day, you went up there and you did the 2 and I watched and you did a good job. So you delivered that, that's great. But imagine now all of a sudden you said, I'm gonna do another 2 minutes on top of that, just about me and about this, and it's not who you are and it's not who I am.
And it takes away from what you said at the start.
Well, it actually, diminished that whole thing. And so that from a construction point of view of constructing it, I don't know why I did that. It was kind of weird. It was because it's not normal, and that's so out of character for me but for whatever reason I got lost in it, and I thought I was on the roast, and I'm not a comedian, and it was very evident. So
yeah, I think that's part of it too. Like when you're going up and you're giving a speech, it's like, well, what is the message that you want to communicate, right?
Yeah.
Like what is it that you're actually really trying to deliver? Because if I think about the speech that I gave the other day, like the number one thing I wanted to deliver was that, like, I'm really thankful for the team that we have put together.
Yeah, no question.
And it's been the last 4 years of work. It hasn't been this last year. It's been 4 years of heads down work. And that's what's led to us now finding some success.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I wanted to do was get us PR. Like I wanted to talk about our AI servers, talk about my AI workshop, and just get it out there in the community.
Yeah.
Like that was my 2 things that I really wanted to deliver.
And you just so you know from me hearing it that you did deliver that.
Yeah,
right?
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So then that's the thing, like when you're going up and you're giving it, it's like I have something important to say. Or at
Yeah.
my buddy's wedding, it was
Yeah.
like I wanted to share like some more personal stories about him, just to like laugh about it and have
Right.
fun about it and
Right.
reminisce on these memories that we have together.
Right.
And then I just wanted to know that I really, really appreciate him as a friend.
Right.
And I really, really appreciate Danny, the person that he's marrying.
Yeah.
That was my goal.
Yeah. So imagine those two goals, and then very likely you delivered it. But imagine if all of a sudden you just got sidetracked and said, "While I'm up here, I might as well make it about me." Then you stole from him, and I can't think of a single instant in my life that isn't who I am. So I don't know what happened. So that was the disappointment of it. Is this? So to your point about when you have those deliverables, you deliver them, and then I think it comes very good. It's authentic, but all of a sudden when you're lost and lost can look like, I don't know why I'm up there. I'm not an imposter. I'm trying to do something for me instead of the person that asked. It isn't about me. Any of the speeches aren't about me. It's about our team. It's about, it's about shaking the audience so they can do a better job in their business, whatever the case. But when it was strange. It was like almost
something similar. I mean, I didn't say very many words, but similar happened to me at the Christmas party last year. I wanted to give a good speech. Like I wanted to. So again, the words that I'm using. I wanted to be funny.
Yeah.
I wanted to show people that I was a good speaker, and I wanted to make it up as I go.
Yeah.
Because that's what I romanticized, right?
Yeah.
And I got there and I looked around and my heart was beating, and I think I probably said like 25 words total, and like looked around, and like it was just a terrible presentation.
Yeah.
But again, I think it was more about how I wanted to be portrayed versus
what you're there to deliver.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so to me, that was a very good lesson for me, is that like it was a humbling moment. And the weird part is I can sit there and say the last 1,000 speeches, I don't care if it's a speech to 2 people or 500 people, I've never, ever made it about me. And it was weird. And all of a sudden, I don't know what the hell got over me, but so that wasn't fair to him. And so that's the regret. The regret isn't, particularly what I said. It's the fact that I wasn't there serving him. I was somehow serving some bizarro thing that took over me, which is so out of character. That's what I mean. It was a foreigner there with me.
I think too, like mistakes like that, I think we just look back and we learn from, right?
Oh, 100%.
Because I bet after that, you're never going to have a speech like that ever again.
No, I never had it before, and I never will have it after.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just the way to always remind you to stay humble, right? To remember that you're there, you're serving other people, and that's what you're there to do. And all that other stuff, that ego, the bravado, and any of that stuff, it never has a place. It never has had a place. It's never shown up in that sense. So,
I actually really like that.
Yeah.
You're there to serve other people.
Yeah.
That's why you're telling the story. Yeah. It's not about you.
And I think when you ask the speech that you remember, the speech that you think you did, probably if I, had to put, okay, here's all the things you've ever done. And I don't care if it's to 2 people or 500 people, like I said. The one that I remember the most was when we were actually in a hockey championship. We were just talking about the Blue Jays and their run here. And I remember what happened was we were in the finals of this championship, and it was our hockey team, which what I'd call it, the lunchbox boys, if that makes sense, versus the super highly skilled, professional sort of hockey player kind of thing. And we were in this sort of championship, this ball hockey championship. And what actually happened was, the first game we lost, and they're very skilled players. I mean, a lot of them went on to play the pros, and then what actually happened was it was written up in the paper that these superstars crushed this team, and it was a best out of 3. So, and then the clipping was there, and I remember the clipping, reading it. It was like almost like the game one, like we were starstruck in one sense that these are very, we're the imposter syndrome. They're good hockey players, and then and I'm like, we're here, and then what actually happened, we were down. So it's best out of 3, we're down like 4-1 or 5-1. It was 5-1 actually. We were down 5-1 with only about a half or so period to go. And I remember calling a timeout. I was the sort of player captain, and I remember what the speech I gave to these guys, and it wasn't prepared. And I basically, it was calling all of them and up, not out, but out and up at the same time, was that, you know, I knew each of them. I've known them forever. I know the way they play, and I've seen them play well. And we were just handing it to them. And I remember referencing that, you know, and that's why they always say, don't say stuff in the media or whatever, because it'll come back. And that's what I did. I said, you know what? I know what the paper wrote, and I know they're good. And I said to the team, I said, if we lose, if we play our hardest and we lose, I'll be the first to stand in line and ask for their autograph. But I want everybody to play the way they can play. And then let's play it on. And we ended up scoring 6-5. We won at 6-5
Nice.
to force game 3. And game 3, same thing, we were down and then forced it right down. And in overtime, they scored. We had 2 breakaways that we didn't score. And then they came on, and I remember I was out there, passed the one, breakaway missed, passed the other one to the guy, breakaway missed. Then I went off my shift and I was on the top staring, and the guy came down and threw the 5-hole, scored the dribbler. But that speech was probably the most impactful one, because they stared at me and I knew them, and I called them up to perform the way we all can perform. And I felt if we performed to our highest degree, that we were equal to these guys. I don't care what pro contracts they had or whatever. Those are just circumstances and timing and everything, right? And it was very interesting, because the respect that I personally got and our team got after that from those guys was through the roof. A couple of them no, because they're always jackasses, but the rest of them always reference that in terms of, as a matter of fact, what happened was our team composition changed over the next several years, because the captain of that team asked to come play on our team.
Cool.
Because he felt he could learn something about, because there shouldn't have been a contest, but it was. And so I remember in that moment shooting that to the team, but it was from the heart and from what, right? And it was about us serving ourselves and rising up. And then when you see that action, then to me, then the speech has impact. Like,
Yeah, because I feel like you get to a mind state where you're just like you knew each player could play better.
Yep.
You knew that you could compete with these guys, and you wanted to play,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I feel like you get into this this mind state where you're just like you're hyper focused on
Yeah.
like what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, for sure.
And like it brings out this different part of you
Right.
that's just like,
Right.
let's do this.
Right.
Let's show up and let's be able to put our best foot forward.
Yeah, and it wasn't so that same thing we were talking about. That wasn't about me being. It was about us representing and serving the team. The team has served us, so we owed it to the team to us to deliver what we could for that team. So it's about all of us serving. And then we lost the championship, but in the losing, we won because of that, because of the respect and how close we were. So these guys who should have crushed us, according to the papers, it wasn't. We were every bit as good as them, and it's just sometimes life and circumstances that make the difference between it. But we had more and equal character to them. I would say they had more raw skill, but we had more team.
Yeah.
And
it's cool to see the impact that can have, right?
Yeah.
Because if you never made that speech, it's probably 6-1 at the end of the game. So like the impact that you can have by just being able to deliver a speech and be able to again, know your audience, know who you're talking to, bridge the gap to what you want to do, and then be able to lift them up to a different level.
Yeah, and so when you sit down and think about it, what is it that you're trying to deliver in the speech? What outcome do you want? What's ideal? Like, what's the romanticizing that this would be it? And anything could have happened, but it just, I couldn't live with the fact that if we delivered that level to what we were doing, then we were cutting ourselves short. So I think we owed it to this. So that one there, it always resonates in my mind because of that. I could see the immediate impact on what we did and how that changed everybody, and it was all there. They had it. It was just a reminder, right? So so to me, that's the leadership, that's the speech, that kind of thing, right? So that was more sort of more reminiscence of a movie or something, or right. But I didn't practice that. It was just out of raw emotion of right, that it's the raw emotion that we had this opportunity in our hand, and it doesn't repeat itself. So, and we were going to let it go only because we were afraid to rise up and accept a challenge. And so when they rose up and accepted the challenge, they were every bit as qualified to do it. So yeah, so it's very.
And the raw emotion part, it's letting that part out of you, right? That's authenticity that we talked
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
It's like that if you can let that out and
Yeah.
that can become natural,
Yeah.
that's when it has the biggest impact.
100%. And I was the captain of the team. So at that moment, I was the captain. I was their leader. Whether before I was or not, because I had the letter C on my jersey. But at that moment, I was the leader that they needed and I needed and we all needed. And so, yeah, so that was probably one of my proudest moments of a, quote, a speech. But it wasn't prepared. But I guess it was prepared from all the time we had spent together and the skills that I knew they had and all of that, right? So so that ability for all of us to rise. And sometimes we don't overcome the challenge. But the mere fact that we're there head to head to the challenge, to me, that's the win. I don't.
Yeah,
Right?
huge
So,
win.
yeah. So so it's interesting all the moments in our lives, right? So
Here.
here.
Anchors up!
Time to set sail.